for December 6th, 2021 of the City Council. I apologize, we're a little late starting. We were waiting for quorum. And Madam Clerk, if we can have the roll call and posting of the agenda, please.
Councilmember Basua,
Here.
Councilmember Lopez,
Here.
Councilmember Perrello.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald.
Here.
Thank you. We have quorum. Posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted in the City Hall Bulletin Board on November 29th. Thank you.
Thank you. And the mayor's unable to be with us tonight. He has a family obligation to take care of, so I will be running the show. Thank you very much. At this time, we're going to move into closed session. It's a 5 o'clock item. The conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, government code section 54956.9 paren D paren 1. Name of the case is City of Oxnard versus County of Ventura. And with that, we will open the call-in public comment period for 3 minutes. And if we don't receive any after that, because we have no speakers, then we will move into closed session. So Madam Clerk, you've got it running already. Cool.
And Mayor Pro Tem, if I may, the dial-in number for the closed session public comments is on the face of the agenda, which is available on the city's website.
And that's the number of 888-475-4499 with meeting ID 898-2932-5465, correct?
Mayor Pro Tem, for closed session, the number to dial is 805-276-4238. 276-4238.
I'm sorry, now that you say that, I misread. I read the wrong section. My apologies.
No problem. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'm just looking at my screen and it looks it's been muted. Did I pass the roll?
We heard you.
Okay, thank you. I'm muting. Thank you.
And Madam Clerk, we have not received any calls, correct?
No calls, no public comments.
Thank you very much. With that, we will we will move to closed session, and we'll be back at 6 p.m. for the regular special session. Apologize. session. I'll ask the city attorney, Mr. Fisher, do we have anything to report out?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. By a vote of 4-0 with Mayor Pro Tem McDonald, Councilmember Perrello, Councilmember Lopez, and Councilwoman Basua voting yes, and with no votes because Mayor Zaragoza is absent and Councilmember Madrigal was not in attendance at the closed session. The City Council has given its legal counsel approval to seek review or relief regarding the Court of Appeals affirming the trial court denial of the city's motion for preliminary injunction in the action entitled City of Oxnard versus County of Ventura et al., which concerns the provision of ambulance transport services in the city. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. That will conclude that item. That will take us to item D, the open ceremonies. Councilmember Perrello, would you be so kind as to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Yes. Please stand and place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. That will now take us to our first appointment item, item E1. Time certain at 6 p.m. From the City Attorney's Department, the subject is California Citizens Redistricting Commission presentation. And the recommendation is that the City Council receive a presentation from the California Citizens Redistricting Committee. And I'm presuming that our Chief Assistant City Attorney is going to handle this. Mr. Roselle, correct?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council. At this point in time, Jose Eduardo Chavez of the California Citizens Redistricting Commission will provide a presentation on the state redistricting process.
Good evening, City of Oxnard. Thank you for inviting the California Citizens Redistricting Commission to present at your meeting. Again, my name is Jose Eduardo Chavez, and I'm a field lead staff covering the Central Coast, Central Valley, and the Sierra Nevada regions. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you this evening. I will be sharing my screen. Give me 1 second here. In this presentation, I'll be briefly touching on who the commission is, background on redistricting in California, and my focus will be on how can the city of Oxnard, how can the community of Oxnard participate in the process. Before I wanted to make sure that I have, I'm sensitive with time. What is the allocated time for this presentation?
Up to 30 minutes.
Great. I won't be taking more than 20 minutes in this presentation. So before I go into the presentation, just a friendly reminder that per California Government Code Section 8253, I'm strictly forbid to take any staff from taking public input outside of a regular scheduled meeting that is not public or official public input meeting. But I will be giving all the direct channels where you can submit your opinions and your comments. So if you have that in mind, I will give those channels directly to you. So we are here at the commission. In fact, today, as we are speaking, commissioners are discussing the last touches for assembly districts in California that will be used for the next 10 years. And as we are approaching the final stages of finalizing the maps, one of the greatest powers that Californians have is to elect their own representative in government and to represent somebody that represent their needs. How districts are drawn can make a difference between empowering and maximizing the voter's choice, or completely the opposite of that, which is minimizing and muting those voices. In most states, politicians draw the lines, but the California Citizens Redistricting Commission was formed to take back that power and have the people in California redraw the maps for Congress, state Senate, State Assembly, and Board of Equalization. Now, the commission is made up of 14 citizens who went through a rigorous selection process. By fully participating and monitoring the redistricting process, more communities may have the opportunity to elect candidates of their choice. And that's the reason why we do this brief presentations, because we want to make sure that the Californians, not only those that are involved in local government or in county government or even state government or aware of this process, but the community in general, Californians in general. So speaking up about, we come to Californians where we say that speaking up about their communities is critical to help keep their community whole to the extent possible. Now, this ensures that all Californian voices are heard by their elected officials when making decisions that affects them extremely, that affects them at all aspects in their lives, from the quality and funding of their children's education to addressing transportation concerns or even determining the tax rates. Now, with that in mind, the value of Californians' input in shaping the new political boundaries is critical for the commission to work. So that's the reason why redistricting is important. And here are some other examples of how redistricting affects you. In 2008, Californian voters passed Proposition 11, which is the Voters First Act. This authorized the creation of an independent commission, which I have the pleasure to serve, to draw district lines for the state Senate, state Assembly, and Board of Equalization. And 2 years later, in 2010, Proposition 20 passed, which is the Voters First Act for Congress. They added the responsibility of drawing the congressional districts to the commission as well. Now, this is a historic process in California. This is only the second time around that the commission is, or Californians are allowed to give input and draw the lines themselves. 2010 was the first one. And so again, this is quite new. And in California, the Redistricting Commission in California it's a model for many other states that are following. And so that's the reason why we mentioned that it's power to the people. And when championing your issues, here at the commission, we believe that having the opportunity to elect representatives that champion your issues is important in a state like California. Issues can vary drastically from one street to the next. And let's say, for instance, Northern California might champion environmental and economic issues, while Central California might champion water or agriculture issues. And in this case, the Central Coast might champion issues dealing with transportation, housing, or employment. And so that's the second reason that redistricting affects you. Funding priorities tied to the issue of electing representatives that champion your issues. You might want to elect representatives that champion a budget that is built directly, that will affect you directly. You would want to elect representatives that have your financial interests at the end. And you would want a representative that is fighting to ensure that your community gets the financial resources it deserves for services such as education, water, fire protection, etc. And the third reason how redistricting affects you is that community boundaries, right? By the redistricting process is all about drawing lines and determining which communities get grouped together into districts. And community input, in this case, your input in this process is essential to help commissioners understand where your community starts and where it ends. Redistricting in California is one of the few, if other than voting, well, it's actually the only few civic activities that any Californian can provide input regarding their community that can ultimately impact the law and regulations, tax structure, how funding is distributed, and which services are provided. So this is extremely important that the Californians participate, because it affects every aspect of your daily life. And something that also consider is that there are many redistricting efforts happening, which again, the name itself is confusing. It's long. I've myself had issues repeating myself who I work for, right? Redistricting, the California Citizens Redistricting Commission. It's confusing, but then it makes it even more confusing when there are so many other efforts happening. Keep in mind that we are the state redistricting, that again, we are focusing on state assembly, state senate, board of equalizations, and US congressional districts. But there are county redistricting, there are city redistricting, and it goes down on to different smaller districts that affects you as well. And so here at the commission, we are trying to make redistricting as attractive as possible, but again, there are many factors that make it even a little bit confusing and more complicated. But and that's the reason. That's another reason why we do these quick presentations as well. And next, here I want you to see what the commissions or commissioners have to follow in order to obey with the U.S. Constitution and California law. Now, these are the 6 criteria that the commissioners have to follow, and they're in order of priorities when drawing district maps. And the first priority is districts must be of nearly equal population to comply with the U.S. Constitution. So that is the first requirement the commissioners must follow when drawing new districts. And the second priority is that districts must comply with the Voting Rights Act, so otherwise known as BRA districts, to ensure that minorities have a fair opportunity to elect representatives of their choice. The third priority is districts must be drawn contiguously so that all parts of the district are connected to each other. And this almost happens naturally, but again, it is a requirement that the commissioners must follow. And the fourth priority, and keep in mind that it's not at the beginning, but it's also not the last. And this is where I want to focus today. Districts must minimize the division of cities, counties, neighborhoods, and communities of interest to the extent possible. And that's where I'll focus today. Communities of interest. It is the fourth priority. So commissioners must keep that in mind when drawing districts. Again, communities of interest or the input that we are receiving that the commission is receiving from Californians throughout the state. The fifth requirement is that districts should be geographically compact such that nearby areas of population are not bypassed for more distant populations. This requirement refers to density and not shape. So that is something important to keep in mind. And again, the sixth criteria is more technical, but again, it is important to emphasize that these are the rules that commissioners have to follow. Where practicable, each Senate district should be comprised of 2 complete and adjacent assembly districts, otherwise known as nesting districts. Board of Equalization districts should be comprised of 10 complete and adjacent state Senate districts. Again, these are a lot more technical rules that the commissioners have to follow, but it's important for Californians to know. And keeping in mind that the commission is independent, the place of residence of any incumbent or political candidate may not be considered in the creation of a map or districts may not be drawn for the purpose of favoring, discriminating against an incumbent political candidate or political party. And that's what makes the commission independent. And again, the 4 criteria is where I'll focus today. Communities of interest. There isn't a set definition of what a community of interest is, but the commissioners have put up some ideas so that Californians can have an idea of what a community of interest may be for them. So when drawing the maps, the commission has to be mindful of communities of interest. We can the commission can easily obtain the city and county information from those jurisdictions, but we need the communities of interest information from Californians. Californians, or you are the people that are living on a daily basis, that are sharing experiences, that are commuting to different areas, that are working in those districts. So that is the reason why the commissioners are interested in hearing from you all. Communities of interest are defined as a concentrated population which shares common social and economic interests that should be included within a single district for purposes of its effectiveness and fair representation. Some examples include areas in which the people share similar living standards, and many of the narratives from communities of interest that we've received have shared that they share similar cultures. They use the same transportation facilities. They share similar work opportunities, or even some of the narratives that we receive say that they have access to the same media. So people can belong to many or multiple communities of interest. And keep in mind that a community of interest is not the same as a district. And a district is not a community of interest, but rather communities of interest or key building blocks to a district. And again, different people can belong to multiple communities of interest. Some ways to describe your communities are by waterways, rural communities, urban communities, mountain ranges, mountains themselves, and some of the boundaries include cities, towns, counties. We've received narratives from Californians about school areas being their boundaries, and just anything that you have or share in common or having commonality with the community around you. And I want you to take a look at the completion of the maps. This is the roadmap to the final maps, and we want Californians to get involved every step of the way. And so again, we are at the final steps of finalizing the maps for the next 10 years. And this is a critical moment for all Californians, right? These are maps that are drawn once every decade. And so we want to encourage all Californians to be part of this change, to be part of this once in a decade transition. And again, these are the meetings that are currently happening, and this is it. This is the pivotal point where Californians are called to participate. For instance, we have the assembly revision and iterations happening as we speak. Today, they will be finalizing the iterations for the assembly districts, and they'll be moving towards the congressional plan, which will start tomorrow, December 7th through December 13th. And so you'll see the other dates for the different districts that they're planning on working on in the next few weeks. There will be time for public input or public comment at the end of every meeting. For today's meetings, it happened already, but there were hours of public input allowed where the commission was able to hear from Californians. Now, the commission must submit the final maps to the Secretary of State no later than December 27th of this year. So it is a pivotal time for all Californians to participate. And with that in mind, I did say that I was to focus on how to participate, and I want to show you a fantastic tool that the commission released recently, and I want you to join me in this. Let me change and this is just an example of the languages that the commission offers. Again, you see Spanish there. I had it as my previous presentation. So let's change it to English. If I find it, let's see here. So what this tool does is, here it is. Okay, So what this map does, or this map viewer does, it essentially is like a Google map. It's quite easy to use. You can zoom in using your mouse. So I can't focus on a specific district, but for purposes of example, we'll use the assembly maps. So you'll see different options. These are the different options. Let's see. Assembly district's current days. So what the assembly district current day layer does, it shows you what maps we are using currently. And so this is how it is as of now. Assembly district drafts, which is the draft that was published on November 10th. You can see how the commission worked in those districts. And let's remove the current ones. So you'll see the different layers will help you see how they will change for the next 10 years. As you can see, so let's put it back. Current districts, you add the assembly district graph 1110, and it'll show you. Now, again, I'm not able to focus on a specific district, but if you click on a district, it'll give you the name. It'll give you the name, right? And let's say you really like this district, but there's an extra layer here that you can see. So I mentioned earlier that the commissioners are working on iterations from last week, and today they'll be finalizing the district. So the assembly district, excuse me. So these are the changes that happened from the 11-10 draft and the current iterations that are happening as of now. So you'll see the difference there. And let's say that you are very happy with how the district has been drawn. And you want to participate, right? So you copy the name. And so let's say that you're either in favor or opposed. Whatever your viewpoint is, you can comment. See how easy it is? It's right in the same page. So send commissioners feedback on maps here. Since you already copied the name of the map, or you already have the name of the map, again, your name is optional. Make sure that you complete the questions or the fields with asterisk. And here you go. You submit your comment, you attach a file if you have, or you can also add your feedback. What is the feedback that you want the commissioners to know? And commissioners are seeing this in real time. Your comments are welcome, and the commissioners want to see Californians participate. So that's how easy it is for you to participate. Again, even if you go to our website and you click on draft maps or even participate, you'll automatically be taken to the different ways that you can submit your comment, or you can participate. Now, let's say that you are not a technology person and that you're not a computer person. Maybe you're able to submit your comment at a different capacity. You can visit our website. You can submit your comment via our website. You can email us to votersfirstact@crc.ca.gov. You can mail us to the redistricting office, or you can again opt for the option of calling in and giving public comment over the phone. And these are some of the many options that you have to participate. Now, again, unfortunately, I'm not able to take any questions that has to do with a specific district, but I will be more than happy to explain any slides that you might have a question in, or I could direct your questions and your input to the correct channels.
Okay, Mr. Rosell, any comments?
No, at this point in time, would recommend if the council has any questions regarding process, that the council asks questions, and I would open up for any public comments
Okay.
regarding this process.
Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers on this issue?
Not on this particular item, not at the moment,
Okay.
but I will start the clock.
Then we will open the call-in period, the 3-minute call-in period while council discusses this issue. And I will start with Councilmember Perrello. Any comments, questions, or concerns?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Yes, I do have a question. The LA Times had a story the 3rd of 3 days ago about a lawsuit filed with the state Supreme Court to overturn the commission. Is that going to impact what's going on right now? And I understand he can't talk about it, but he said, but I don't steer me who I need to get an answer from, please.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can send you the information to our communications director, which he can give you more details and is able to speak on the issue.
And just one follow-up, Mayor Pro Tem, are you aware of that lawsuit that's been filed? Do you guys keep up with the papers and stuff, right?
Is this question directed to me? I apologize.
Yes.
Yes, we are aware that there are many litigations
Thank you.
happening. Mhm.
Thank you very much. That's all I have, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thanks, sir. Councilmember Lopez, any questions, comments, or concerns?
No comments. Just want to thank Mr. Chavez for the presentation and to have been receiving information throughout this process on the meetings and just the updates on the redistricting. So thank you for the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilmember Basua, any questions, comments, or concerns?
No, thank you. I just want to thank Mr. Chavez for his presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. And Councilmember Madrigal, do you have any questions, comments, or concerns?
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, and thank you for going over the criteria of making these maps work. I think it's very helpful and useful for our own process that's coming up. Again, thank you. And as Councilmember Lopez said, thank you for the emails along the way, keeping the public or keeping us in the know as to what is going on. And thank you for explaining on how to use the website. I was actually kind of working on it right now, and it's actually very user friendly. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And Madam Clerk, we have about 20 seconds left on, Mr. City Manager.
Yes, a quick question. Can you explain or just talk a little bit more about the criteria about nesting? I know that's a written criteria, but that seems to be one that's rarely ever spoken of. Maybe you can explain that a little bit more.
Sorry, I had trouble finding my mute button there. So the sixth requirement for the commissions to follow is what essentially is what nesting is. It basically means that whole districts, either Senate or Assembly districts, fall to the exact number that they are required for either, in this case, a Senate district could be comprised of 2 whole Assembly districts. And it could be the same for a Board of Equalizations, which is larger district. In this case, 10 Senate districts must fall in one of the Board of Equalization districts. That is essentially what it is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Did we get any calls?
No public comments, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation, sir. And that will conclude, I'm sorry. Oh, Councilmember Perrello, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand up there.
It's okay. Mr. Chavez, thank you very much for taking the time to make the presentation here. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Been a pleasure. Have a good evening.
Okay, thank you all. That will conclude this item and take us to the next item, which is the City Attorney's Office and public hearing regarding redistricting of city council districts. And we will now proceed with item E1, which is that which, no, wrong cheat sheet here, I'm sorry. This is the time and place set for a public hearing on item F1, public hearing regarding redistricting of city council districts. And the recommendation is that the city council conduct a public hearing regarding the redistricting process for city council districts and receive a presentation on the online and paper mapping tools that are available to encourage public participation in the city's redistricting process. We start with the city clerk certification of publication and written communications, if any. Madam City Clerk.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald, there was a legal notice for this public hearing published in the Ventura County Star on November 29th, 2021. And it was also published in the city's website on November 29th, 2021. The city clerk's office has not received any written communications on this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The city attorney will now introduce the demographic consultant who will provide a presentation regarding this item. And following the presentation will be available to answer any brief clarifying questions the council members may have before we take public testimony on the item. Council will have the opportunity to provide additional feedback after the public hearing has been closed. Mr. Roselle.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. This evening, Kristen Parks of National Demographics will have a PowerPoint presentation on redistricting. But before she starts, I just want to indicate that she will be talking about mapping tools that were released online on November 22nd, 2021. And the city has provided public outreach to let the public know that these paper and online mapping tools are available. So Kristen, I appreciate your presentation this evening.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council. My name is Kristen Parks, and I am your consultant with National Demographics. I am going to present again a brief overview of the process just to make sure everyone is up to speed, and especially since we just heard about the state process, which is somewhat different and the criteria are somewhat different. So, of course, here are the 6 current districts that were adopted in 2018 for the city of Oxnard. NDC was the consultant hired to assist with the transition to the district-based elections. However, these districts were drawn using 2010 census data, and now that we have 2020 census data, we need to revisit these lines. So, our timeline for the city of Oxnard is looking ahead to an April 17th deadline to adopt a new district map. And that, of course, is to make sure that the registrar of voters has time to ensure that everyone is in place and everything is in place for the November 8th, 2022 election. So tonight is our 3rd public hearing on redistricting for the city. There are 4 public hearings mandated by state law. And you'll notice looking at this timeline that Oxnard is going above and beyond those 4 required hearings and has scheduled 7 public hearings to provide as much opportunity for the public to engage as possible. When you see me the next time in January, we will be discussing draft maps. And so this is the last public hearing 3, where we won't yet be looking at specific mapping proposals, but when we come back in the new year, that's what we'll be doing. So my focus tonight will be on emphasizing the mapping tools that are available to members of the public so that they can begin to submit maps. And I know we have received at least 1 map already at this time. So the legal criteria for cities who are redistricting, some of this is going to be similar to what you heard from the State Commission, and some of it is different. It's really important to understand in the state of California that we have several different parts of our legal code that have to do with redistricting. So what's required for a school district versus a county versus assembly versus the city is different. So what I'm showing you on this slide is what's required for cities. And of course, federal law says that each of these 6 districts should be relatively equal in population size. And what we see from the courts is that the courts are accepting a total population deviation across districts of up to a maximum of 10%. We also must comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act, which states that we must not draw district boundaries that discriminate or dilute the voting power of protected classes of voters. Those are African American, Hispanic, Asian American, and Native American voters. While we will take care to comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act, we cannot draw district boundaries based solely on race or ethnicity, because that is considered racial gerrymandering. We will be taking into consideration a multitude of factors. What factors do we have to take into consideration? Well, California law gives us 4 criteria that are rank ordered by priority. The first being similar to what you heard for the state, that districts must be geographically contiguous. So all parts of the district must be connected, no disconnected pieces. Second, we want to the extent possible aim to minimize the division of neighborhoods and communities of interest across council districts. This is something that was discussed in the transition to districts for Oxnard, but now we have it prioritized as the number 2 factor that we must consider. 3 is to create easily identifiable boundaries. So when we're looking at where we draw district lines, we like to draw them to follow roads or waterways or things that the average resident is familiar with. And finally, we want to, whenever possible, ensure that the districts are compact. And compactness is defined as not bypassing a nearby population to take in a more distant population. If you do that, you have a non-compact district. It often has a strange shape as it's snaking around. However, there are instances where non-compact districts are legally permissible. For instance, if we are drawing a non-compact district, but it is maintaining a community of interest, right? Because minimizing the division of a community of interest is higher up on this list than compactness. Once we've considered all the legal criteria, we can also talk about minimizing changes to election cycles, respecting the voters' choices, and preserving the core of existing districts, in addition to any other goals that may be specific to Oxnard for the redistricting process. However, any of the other goals that we have or the traditional criteria we may want to address can only be considered after we have met the requirements of federal and state law. So that's a lot, but I know you've heard it from me before, so hopefully it's starting to become familiar. Quickly, I do want to remind you the definition of communities of interest. We were lucky to hear from the statewide commissioner today that communities of interest are defined as concentrated populations that have social and economic interests in common and that would benefit from being included in a single district for the purposes of their effective and fair representation. So while residents of Oxnard may live in one neighborhood or the border between one neighborhood and another, they may be members of multiple overlapping communities of interest. And so we are accepting testimony from the public and encouraging the public to come forward and describe their communities of interest so that when we come back in January and start looking at draft maps, that we can evaluate these draft maps on the basis of how they affect communities of interest in the city of Oxnard. So that's why it's important for us to hear from the public. What is your community of interest and where is it? What are its geographic boundaries to the best of your knowledge? So there's no wrong way to describe your community of interest, and we do hope to receive testimony from the public. So I did mention that federal law requires that these districts be relatively equal in population size. So based on that 2020 census data for the city of Oxnard, we have total population for each of the current districts. And if we take the total population of the city and divide it by 6, that's the number of districts, we get what is called an ideal population size. And that is, if all 6 districts were exactly equal in population, that's the ideal size. And then from that ideal size, we compare it to the current population, the 2020 population of each district. And that's where we get these deviation numbers. So the districts that have negative deviation are slightly underpopulated relative to the ideal district size. And the districts that have positive deviation here, those are overpopulated relative to the ideal size. Now, again, we don't have to get each district to the perfect exact ideal size. What our goal is, in order to comply with federal law, is to bring the total deviation under 10%. And you'll see now that it is close to 20%. So one of the goals that you have before you is to adopt a map that does bring that 20% total deviation into compliance. Other things to note here, of course, Oxnard is a majority Latino city, 75% of the total population in 2020. When you look at the percentage of voting age citizens, and you look at that broken down at the district level, you do see here that 5 out of our 6 districts are majority Latino. And then there is an array of other data and demographics that can be broken down to the district level. And I'm happy to share any of that other information as requested or necessary. So I'm not going to go over all of the map, but just a reminder that that total deviation, that 10% maximum, the way that we calculate that total deviation is just by looking at the difference between the smallest district's population and the largest district's population. So that's where this 19.97% number is coming from. It's coming from the difference between our largest district and our smallest district, right? So you can actually just add the absolute value of those percentages, right? So you can add the deviation of District 2 to the deviation of District 6, which is the smallest. So that's where those numbers are coming from. People always ask, where are these weird numbers coming from? So there's a whole slide if you want to get into the math. The reason that those numbers do matter is because when the public is drawing their own maps, we want the public to be fully empowered to draw maps that comply with the law. So even our simplest mapping tool, the paper maps, which are available on the website, and they're available in English and Spanish. They are downloadable PDFs that you can print at home. You can print as many as you want and color your districts directly on the map. And what's nice is there's an optional Excel spreadsheet that you can download along with the paper map. And the way that this works is that we have the paper map divided up into population units, which are just geographic areas, and they are labeled with an identification number. And those ID numbers, you can see I've highlighted here, unit 15, those ID numbers correspond to rows in the Excel spreadsheet. And once you have drawn your map, or as you're drawing your map, and you want to, if you want to see how many residents you're adding to each district, so you can try to balance the population across the 6 districts, and you don't want to be constantly calculating it on your phone or a calculator, the Excel spreadsheet will automatically fill at the very top of the spreadsheet how many people you've assigned to District 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All you have to do is fill in the yellow column, and that you fill in the yellow column with a number between 1 and 6, and it's just whichever district you're assigning that geographic unit to. So this unit 15 here, you would simply type into this yellow box where you're assigning it to, and it would then automatically add it to this running total at the top. So this is a great tool. It's the simplest tool that we have. You don't even have to use it on paper. If you want to electronically draw on the PDF, you can do that as well. If you just want to submit the Excel spreadsheet, that's fine as well. So this is a versatile tool. The city also has online currently one online mapping tool and another that will be posted shortly. It is now available, and I just sent over all of the information to the city tonight. So there's 2 online mapping tools. The one I'm going to show you tonight is the simpler online tool, where you're going to be basically doing the same thing you would do with the paper maps, but you do it on your computer screen. And then the more advanced tool will likely be available within the next week, posted up on the website, and it will be posted with our NDC tutorial video and a step-by-step PDF. So for more advanced users or folks that have already drawn paper maps and want to go further with a more advanced tool, or power users, then this will be a tool for them to explore. But I'm going to show you the DRA 2020, and the way that you can get to it is, as well as the paper maps, is from the oxnard.org/redistricting page. So opening that page, and I'm going to go ahead and close out the PowerPoint. From this page, it's very prominently shown our mapping tools. So the online mapping tool, DRA 2020, has a user guide in English and Spanish. And when you click on the link, you are taken to this page, DRA 2020, Dave's Redistricting, and you do have to create an account on this site. The reason for that is the way to save the maps that you are creating, and that is the way you're going to be able to submit them to us. So to create your account, it's super easy. You will just put in an email address and a password of your choice, click sign up, and you're done. So I'm going to go ahead and log in with my NDC account. And as soon as you log in, it's going to take you to a page called My Maps. And My Maps will list whatever maps you've been working on, but you can also search the universe of maps that are out there by clicking the drop down and clicking Published Maps. So if I wanted to search Oxnard, it would come up. And what comes up is you see a map that has been submitted by a member of the public, perhaps, as well as the NDC template. The other way to get to this NDC template is from the redistricting webpage. Under Online Mapping Tool, click on Oxnard Redistricting Template. And once you're logged into the tool, you will be able to create your own editable copy of the template. The template itself, right, is just the framework. So you have to make it your own. And you'll see that it says view only right here, right? Because you can't edit the template. The template is the bones. However, when you click the paintbrush, you're given the option to make a copy. So you're going to want to make a copy of the map. And you can see that already what we've included in the template is these darker boundaries here are the city limits of Oxnard. And then the sort of lighter pink purple boundaries here are the election precincts. And shown for each precinct is the 2020 total population. You can hide that on the map if you want, but it is there for reference. So the other thing you're going to see is that ideal district size, 33,769, right? That's our target for each of these districts within that maximum deviation of 10% across all districts. So if we click make an editable copy of this map, it's going to take a minute to copy everything here. There's a lot of data on the back end that it's copying. But once it copies that map, it will appear in the list of maps on the My Maps page. There it is. And we can click the checkbox and we can click edit. We may want to start by renaming it so it's not just copy of Oxnard redistricting template, but perhaps it will be Kristen Parks's demo of Oxnard redistricting template. And if you want to add a description, you can do that at any point while you're working on your map. Perhaps you want to describe what some of the big changes you made were, or what community of interest that you were focusing on trying to keep together. So here's my map. Again, keeping the red checkbox selected, I can click edit and start to draw my districts. Again, there's a lot of data on the back end, so you just want to be patient as it loads. For the same reason, we recommend that users don't try to do this on a cell phone. Oftentimes it will just fail to load the page. So we do recommend using a computer for the tool and giving it time to load. Sometimes you might want to hit refresh, and there we go. Now it's fully loaded, but you still see it still has to zoom into the city level from the state. While it does that, I'm going to double check two settings. And there are two settings that we want to make sure are correct so that our map is legally compliant. And the first thing we want to do is we're clicking this gear in the top right. And we're going to click on map settings. And we just want to check and uncheck the box next to districts have equal population. That resets our ideal population size, and just so we want to make sure it's correct. So you just check it and uncheck it and it will update. The other thing we want to do is click data selector, click the drop down, and we want to make sure we check hide election data and partisan analytics. This tool, DRA 2020, was only recently launched for local governments. And so it has a lot of partisan data on the back end. And the state of California requires us to make sure that we are not favoring or discriminating against political parties when we draw districts. So it's best to not look at any of that data. So I recommend that everyone make sure that this box is checked. And then you're going to click apply and you'll be ready to draw your districts. The first thing to look at is the district selector box on the left side of your screen. It shows you that there's a total of 6 districts that you're going to want to draw. And as you draw the districts, it will automatically show you how many residents you're adding to each district and how far off you are from that ideal population size. On the right side of the screen, when you hover your mouse over a precinct, it will give you that racial and ethnic breakdown for the precinct and the citizen voting age breakdown. Once you're looking at the block level, which is an even smaller geographic unit, you can hover your mouse over the blocks and see that same information. Coming back to the left side of the screen, there are some overlays that are available that you saw in the template. If you want to put on that background map, that populates it with all of your roads and landmarks. So that's very helpful. And if you wanted to put on that population, total population, you could do that just by clicking total population and apply. And so let's start drawing a district. And whenever I demo drawing districts, I just try to draw something that no one would ever draw. So I'm going to draw something that is messed up on purpose. Okay, so let's, I don't know, I think purple is a pretty color. So let's click District 3 and we'll start drawing some things and we'll assign them to District 3. So you select the district you want to draw, and then you simply click the paintbrush, and you can see as you hover your mouse that you can get a little preview of what you're going to select, and you can click each block, or you can click and drag, and that will automatically assign. You can see I have selected 17,649 people and added them to District 3. If I made a mistake and want to erase, I simply click the eraser and do the same thing. Click and drag, or click each precinct. Let's say we want to fine tune this a little bit. We want to zoom in. We want to look at the block level. I'm going to click this hand icon here to drag the map, just to click and drag it. So we're a little bit zoomed in. There we go. So let's say I want to select some of these areas, but not all of them. So if I click block and then I click the paintbrush, looking here at this precinct, it's outlined in a blue color now, and it's within that blue precinct are all of the individual blocks. So this is the smallest geographic unit we can assign to districts. So perhaps I just want to assign those blocks to District 3 and the others I don't. Okay, then I can click the checkbox and be done. You can do the same thing with any of the precincts. If you are selected block as your level, your geographic level up at the top, then when you click on the precinct, the blocks appear. They won't appear unless you click on the precinct. So that is how you draw your districts. And if you were paying attention earlier, when I talked about criteria, you would know that what I've drawn right now is non-contiguous and therefore would not be legally compliant, because not only have I not gotten anywhere near the ideal population size, my district is disconnected. Here's the cool thing about DRA 2020. When you click the Analyze button, it goes through some of these requirements under Requirements, and it will tell you if what you've drawn is complete, contiguous, free of holes, and meeting the equal population guidelines. So you can see here, the only thing I've accomplished is no districts are embedded in others. Well, that's because I only drew one. But you can see that it gives you this information, and it just really helps you to know that you are drawing a legally compliant map. And if there's anything that you need to change, it can let you know. You need to assign every part of Oxnard to a district, and you want to make sure your districts are contiguous. Once you have finished drawing all your districts, you can click on the Statistics button, and it will automatically show you all of that demographic data, which is very nice. And again, you can download it and open it in Excel, and we can just click Map to go back to our map. So let's add some more precincts here. See if we can get this somewhat close to our ideal size. Now we're over the size, right? So we would maybe want to erase. That's how you're going to work with this. And so once you have done all 6 districts, you're going to be ready to submit your map. And you can share your map, or you can go back to your My Maps page, which you can get to just by clicking these 3 rows here, this little table icon. And there's 2 things you want to do to submit your map. So we'll check my map that I've drawn. And the first thing that we're going to want to do is publish it. When you submit a map as part of Oxnard's redistricting process, that map that you submit becomes part of the public record for the next 10 years. So we want to make sure that map is publicly available. So the first thing we're going to do is click publish the map. I'm not going to put in a Twitter handle. I'm going to publish the map. And the second thing I'm going to do is click share. When I click share, a unique URL is generated for my map. So this is what I'm going to want to submit. I can submit either the URL or the title, right? Kristen Parks's demo of Oxnard redistricting template. I can copy that and I can enter that into a email that I submit. And what email? Well, you're going to want to email your map to redistricting@oxnard.org. Okay, so I could click that email link from the website and then paste the URL to my map, or I could simply send the email and say, I've submitted a map and published it. Its name is Kristen Parks Demo. So this is a wonderful tool. It is a relatively simple tool once you understand how it works, and you can create and submit as many maps as you want. So I am going to end there so that I can take any questions that there may be on the process or the mapping tools. And thank you so much for listening to that technical demonstration.
Thank you very much. And I'm sorry, at this time, we'll ask if there are any clarifying questions on behalf of council regarding the presentation. And it would be for clarifying questions only. We will circle back after the public hearing for general comments by council. Okay, not seeing none, we will move forward. Okay, I'll now open the public testimony portion of the public hearing. Members of the public were invited to sign up to speak on this item on the city's website. And a person who did not sign up may do so now by following the instructions posted on the agenda for this meeting and at the city's website, oxnard.org, city-meetings. Speakers will have 3 minutes to speak on this item. And Madam City Clerk, I show that we have 2 speakers. Is that still correct?
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald, we did have 2 public speakers signed up for this public hearing. One of the public speakers has notified me that due to being under the weather will not be able to speak, but we do have an additional caller waiting, so I'll need to identify them. But in the meantime, we do have our first public speaker on the line.
Is that Mr. Arujo?
Yes.
Okay.
One moment.
Thank you.
Mr. Arujo?
Yes, good evening.
Yes, thank you. You have 3 minutes to speak. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and fellow council members. My name is Ronald Araújo. First, I would like to thank Mr. Rizzo for keeping me and likely others abreast of the delays that were happening in regards to the online map making. It's greatly appreciated by myself and for others, both in the Oxnard and those looking into the Oxnard community. Second, I am hoping for more vigorous visibility and advertisement from the city. As an example, in regards to the county, albeit a limited view on Facebook and Nextdoor, unfortunately, they have just heard that the county is going to be finalizing their maps. And I hope that the city of Oxnard is going to be ensuring that that visibility is out there for the residents. Unfortunately, with the online map making tools available so late and into the holiday period, I'm concerned that the residents are not going to be able to get the information. Based on the redistricting that happened 3 years ago, it appeared that the council was already filtering the maps based on the first time that the draft maps were available, which didn't allow for additional options later in the process. I hope that the council will be looking at both early and late maps in the many public hearings available. Last point is that, I hope that Oxnard is going to be accelerating the public advertising just based on our neighboring cities of Ventura, Ojai, and Camarillo that seem to be ahead of us. And so I greatly appreciate the time that council has had for this, and I'm looking forward to more public debate and explanation in regard to the process and the draft maps that will appear from the residents. Thank you kindly, and I look forward to being at the next meeting, and I'm sure the residents do also.
Thank you very much for your
Thank
comments.
you, Mayor
I
Pro
don't
Tem,
know.
that's all. Yeah.
I'm sorry, sir. I apologize.
No, that was all, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. And I don't know if staff wanted to make any response to those comments or move on to see if we have another speaker. Okay, and Madam City Clerk, I show that Lucy Cartagena was signed up for our other speaker. She's not available.
She won't be able to speak tonight. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay,
And we do not have any additional callers at this time. However, I will set the timer for the 3 minutes.
okay, what I'll do is I'll open the floor to council members to make comments or discuss while we go through the 3-minute waiting period for additional callers. And I will start with Councilmember Perrello if you have any comments or additions.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and I appreciate the speaker's comments. I'd just like to add one thing. It wasn't a redistricting 3 years ago. It was the creation of districts. And the item that he alluded to, not being able to review, I wasn't quite clear of that. If Mr. Arroyo can come back and explain what he was talking about with respect to not allowing the information to come forward. As a council member at the time, I wasn't aware of that. Those are the only comments. I appreciate the presentation, and I appreciate the, in a city this large, his concerns about getting the advertising out is very big. Over 200,000 people, and we only had 2 people sign up to speak. It's an indication of sometimes what happens. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Lopez, any comments?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and really appreciate the presentation from Ms. Parks. I do hope that we, despite the holidays upon us, that we do get some input from residents, which brings me to the question that I had for you, Ms. Parks. If you can clarify, with the 4 hearings that we have after starting January 6th, and the opportunity to submit maps, when is the deadline for any maps to be submitted for consideration in the discussions, or is it an ongoing submission until the last hearing?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Kristen, go ahead, please.
So we are going to continue to receive public map submissions as long as we possibly can. However, in order to process those and ensure that they're posted, we do have a legal requirement that before any map is adopted, it has to be posted online 7 days in advance of adoption. So we can't accept maps all the way to the very last minute, but there will be, and there may already be a deadline posted on the schedule on the city website.
If I can provide additional information, staff is recommending a deadline of February 7th. That gives more than almost 2.5 months in which the public has the opportunity to present maps. And just to emphasize for the public, we do have public hearings set for January 6th, January 22nd, and February 1st. And we also have one after that February 7th deadline of February 16th. Also, depending on the public input, we also have the ability in which to add additional public hearing dates to ensure that there is more than adequate public input. I know for the districting process that I was involved with 3.5 years ago, we had a total of 8 public hearings, and we're considering the number of districts that would be there as well as the configurations of the various maps. So we had a number of opportunities for public input, and we expect to have the same for this time as well.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Roselle and Ms. Parks. That is all on my end, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Lopez, are you finished? Thank you so much. Councilmember Basua, any questions or comments?
No, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you so much to Ms. Parks for the presentation. And I'm just going to encourage all the residents, if they are listening in, to go ahead and replay Mrs. Parks' presentation. It's very informative. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Madrigal, any questions or comments?
Thank you very much for the presentation. Very informative, as previously stated. I do have actually a few questions. Simply put, I don't want to be in the same situation as we were 3 years ago. But one of the things was that we did it by precincts this time, whereas last time it was actually done by neighborhood. Is there any way that we can get that neighborhood feature back again this time? Because I know certain neighborhoods are probably 4 different or 5 different voting precincts. I want to thank the member of the public who already submitted a map. I looked at the map, actually very, very good. You know, there's some things that I probably disagree with, but that's not the time or place. But it was a very very good job by the resident. And then also, and this is more for as far as staff is concerned. Simply put, you know, we do have, you know, residents who are very involved, but actually it'll be very hard for them to even get started. Last time we provided maps already printed on the 4th floor. Is that option going to be available as well this time? So those are my 2 main questions.
Yes, I'd be happy to answer those. First, we will have by no later than tomorrow into business printed maps, both at 4th floor in our library in English and Spanish. So those will be available, and they will, anyone who has any interest can also email us at the redistricting@oxnard.org or call the city attorney's office, and we're also happy to send those out if you would like them transmitted in that way. As far as the neighborhood, the ability to draw maps by neighborhood, at this point in time, I will need for Kristen to weigh in if we have the ability to program to include neighborhoods. I do know, however, that, for example, for the county redistricting process, we had the ability to look at the maps, look at the configuration of the neighborhoods, and see, for example, if the county's map had divided some of our neighborhoods. And as you recall, Councilmember Madrigal, those were some of the comments that we made, that some of those maps that were being proposed, you know, by the county did unnecessarily divide some of our neighborhoods. So those are factors that we can absolutely look at, you know, as we go forward in this process.
Yeah, those are great questions. And I am happy to add the neighborhood overlay so that that is visible on the mapping template. If the neighborhood boundaries have changed at all since the districting process 3 years ago, I'll need to get an updated copy, but I'm happy to go ahead and add neighborhoods. I also wanted to mention one thing I forgot when I was showing you the tool is that the DRA tool is in English only, but it works very well in the Chrome browser if you use the Google Translate extension. And I've tested that out in Spanish. It does translate every portion of the mapping template. All of the buttons and all of the descriptions are pretty well translated. So I also wanted to point that out.
Okay, no, I think kind of that question was kind of answered, but at the same time it wasn't. Simply put, last time I think as a city, even fan or no fan of the map, I think we did a good enough job that I think only 2 neighborhoods were cut up. And I think even with this map, no matter what we do, just based on the way the system of the mapping is, we're going to be cutting neighborhoods, and there is actually no possible mathematical way of not cutting up. There's no way of having a map that does not cut any of the neighborhoods up. So I, in a weird way, feel that the 2018 version was better than this 2020 version.
Okay, Councilmember Madrigal, are you done, or do you have additional comments?
I would like to see a better feature than the options that we were given. In other words,
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. I apologize.
Oh, I may be cutting out. I'll state it again. I just feel that the this time around is actually a worse version of the 2018 version. I feel that it was more helpful. The mapping system was more helpful in 2018 than it is today. And I don't think going by precincts actually works for Oxnard.
Okay.
If I can
Thank
take
you very
the
much.
first
Mr.
cut at
Rosell, did you have a comment? Or?
yes, if I could take the first
Yes.
crack at responding, Mayor Pro Tem, Councilmember Madrigal, as Ms. Parks indicated, she will have an overlay which will show the city of Oxnard by its neighborhoods. So
Sorry, Mr. Rosell, but that's not what I was asking for. I was asking full on, like last time, there's, I don't know, example, 2,000 people, 2,000 voters in West Village. There is, 1,800 people, registered voters in Colonia. That is not being offered this time around. I wish I would have kept one of the paper copies from 3 years ago, but unfortunately, I don't think I did. But the mapping system was a little bit different, and I think it was a little bit more ideal and user-friendly than this time around.
The good news is that everything that was done before is, I wasn't part of that process, but since NDC did it, I can access it, and I'm happy to reference it. And if you did want a report produced about the population by neighborhood, that could easily be produced. And so this is the perfect opportunity for members of the council. If they do have requests or directions to NDC, I will take all of that down.
Councilmember Madrigal, anything else?
I'll let Councilmember Perello speak.
Okay, Councilmember Perello.
Yeah, if Councilmember Madrigal would like to think about the registered voters, and we can do it. I don't see why we don't do that. Just a minor correction, the neighborhoods that were cut up were South Bank, Fremont South, and Wilson. There were 3 neighborhoods cut up. But if Ms. Parks can help me, we don't select the districts based on registered voters. Does that come into play in selecting the district?
It does not. So we are required to achieve population balance looking at the total population. However, for each draft map that is created, NDC does provide a breakdown by district of total population, citizen voting age population, registered voters, and voter turnout. in the previous election cycle. So we will be providing you with probably more data than you ever want.
I thank you. And because I think Councilman Madrigal is right. If for nothing else, just for the general population, when you find out how many people are of voting age, how many people are actually registered, and how many people actually voted, it's an extremely eye-opening bit of information. I would support his request to have that added.
Okay. Thank you very much. Madam City Clerk, do we have any additional speakers?
No, Mayor Pro Tem, no additional callers. Thank you.
Okay, with no additional speakers, I will close the public hearing and ask Mr. Nguyen, do you have any comments or?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Parks, going back to the criteria, one of them was keeping the districts compact. So I was hoping you can help clarify or re-clarify, I should say, that the districts themselves, though, are limited based on the actual geographic boundaries of the city. So, because if you look, for example, at the existing map, District 1 looks like a classic New England gerrymander, but it's really because some districts have to go around things like lakes, or in this case, an airport or county farmland. Just want to, if you could clarify that.
Absolutely. And that's an excellent point, particularly for members of the public who are following along. All of these criteria are stated to be criteria that we follow to the extent practicable. So there are even cities that are themselves, their city boundaries are non-contiguous. So that means they're going to necessarily have districts that are non-contiguous, right? I think the city of Ventura may be one example of that. So yes, if your city boundaries themselves, the lines of your city are not compact, then you're going to find that you have some districts that don't look compact. When we're talking about drawing the district boundaries, we're really talking about those, not the exterior boundaries of the city, but the boundaries that we have control over, which are in this process, which are the districts themselves. So thank you for that clarification.
And thank you.
Thank you very much. The request here was to conduct a public hearing. We have done so. If there are no additional follow-up comments or questions, then I believe that an adjournment would be in order.
Do we need to wait
Councilmember
3
Perrello.
minutes? Do we need to wait the 3 minutes or something? Run that timer thing?
We already did,
We
Councilmember
did. Okay,
Perrello.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, not seeing any additional comments. I will say that we are adjourned. Thank you all very much for your participation. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.